the Holy Land. And it's here in this location that Abraham and his descendants are going to build a family. A promise of a son, the promise of descendants, and the promise of a nation, all in this scene. Well, this unfolds the rest of Act 1, the story of the Jews. Scene 2 unfolds this way. It's the story of these four characters. And by the way, every one of these stories is just filled with drama. I mean, first of all, Abram, he's made this promise. He's 75 years old, by the way. 75 when God says, pack it up and head off and leave it all, and you're going to go where I'm going to show you. Now, the book of Hebrews says that he was able to respond to that in faith because somewhere in Abraham, he was looking for a better city, is what Hebrews says. It's a pretty cool passage. He's looking not for a city whose architect and builder is man, but he has this sense that there's a city somewhere whose architect and builder is God. And so you have this tremendous adventure. Well, he gets there and his wife doesn't get pregnant. I mean, the whole deal that God's promised him hinges upon him having a son. And he's there, and he's 99, and he still hasn't had a son. And so there's this tremendous drama, and then you have him, kind of doing his do-it-yourself project and going to his handmaiden Hagar, and he has a child through her that's Ishmael, who is going to be a thorn in the flesh. His descendants is going to create this tremendous conflict that comes all the way down to the present time. And so you have this drama going on between Isaac and Ishmael and all about Abraham's relationship with God. I mean, you have this moment in time where after the promise has finally been fulfilled, and, it's fulfilled at a time when really physiologically, neither he nor his wife really have the capability naturally to have children, but God gives them this gift, and then he has this son that is the fulfillment of all the promises that God has said to him, and God comes, and what does God say? Take him up on a mountain and kill him. I mean, this is intense drama here. And so you have this scene in, Genesis chapter 22 where, here he's taking his son up on the mountain, and they're taking everything necessary for a sacrifice except the sacrifice itself. And Isaac says to him, Dad, where's the sacrifice? He probably is getting a little nervous at that point in time, okay? And Abraham says, the Lord will provide. And then you have this tremendous scene where he is so confident in the promise of God. And by the way, all of these characters with all of their flaws, I mean, none of them are perfect, all kinds of mistakes and missteps, and yet God always kind of getting them back on track and pushing the story forward. And yet, he's so confident in the promise of God that if God tells him to kill Isaac, he's convinced God can raise him from the dead. And he's prepared to do it, and of course, God stays his hand and says, don't do it. Well, then the story moves on. You have the story of Isaac. And of course, the story of Isaac is full of drama because Isaac has two sons. He has a son named Jacob, and he has a son named Esau, and you have these two brothers that are kind of always at each other, and really it's filled with all kinds of emotions because you got Isaac, you got Jacob, and Jacob is going to be the one that the promise comes through, but who's the favored son in the family? It's not Jacob. It's Esau, Jacob and Esau. And Dad likes Esau because Esau is kind of the rugged man's man, and he's the hunter. And so you have this sort of struggle going on until ultimately you have this deception of Jacob, this deception of Isaac by Jacob, and the birthright is sold, and there's so much intensity that Jacob's afraid Esau's going to kill him, and he's got to flee. And so you got this whole nother adventure going on, and Jacob flees, and he's, and he's off, and God begins to deal with him until ultimately in the 32nd chapter of Genesis, he begins to head home, and then you have this moment where Jacob wrestles with the angel of God, and so, he sent his family across the river, and he sent all of his possessions and his servants, and he stays behind, and he has this incredible encounter with God where he wrestles with God through the night until finally, he just won't let go till God blesses him, and God touches him and wounds him, and he limps and uses a cane for the rest of his life, but he's a changed guy. And his name is changed from Jacob to what? Israel. And Jacob then starts having kids. And ultimately, Jacob has 12 sons. And we get into the story of Jacob. And now you've got 12 brothers, and you've got the ultimate dysfunctional family going now. I mean, it's an amazing scenario because, they hate the brothers, they hate him. There's 12 brothers, and one of them's favored, Joseph. And the brothers, they basically want to kill him. And they end up, selling him into slavery. And so you have the story of Jacob and Jacob's sons and the 12 sons that ultimately become 12 tribes, and that leads into the story of Joseph and his brother and the drama of this and Joseph's relationship with God, and Joseph getting thrown into prison and having the interpretations of the dreams, and ultimately becoming the second most powerful person in all of Israel, and there as the most powerful person in Israel, here come his brothers in a time of famine, down from Israel, and suddenly their very lives depend upon this person that suddenly they learn it's their brother that they've sold away into slavery. And the drama of it is it's really, really incredible. And you come to the end then of this scene where you have the entire family that has now grown out of this promise to Abraham, that's now 70 people, sons, wives, kids, 70 people, and they all move down to Egypt. And there in Egypt, this scene comes to an end. And the next scene, which we'll pick up on beginning next week, will take place, and in the screenplay it says, fade to black. Okay, fade to black, and then just like in a movie, fade to black, when it comes up again, there's going to be simply what's called a card, which is when up on the screen comes words to kind of tell you what's coming next, and the card will say 400 years later, and that will begin scene 3 of Act 1.